Hey, it's Voldus here from Own Root Roses. Today I'm just going to show you how to propagate roses via an air layering technique. Now, this was an old video of mine that I've just stumbled across, so since filming this I've learnt two additional things. First, you don't need to ring bark the branches of the roses for this to work. You can just wound the branches and it should work just fine. Secondly, the rooting hormone that I used in this video, the powdered form, it's not very good for propagating roses in Australia. I would instead recommend the rooting hormone that I've discussed in previous videos. I was at a nursery about 2 weeks ago and saw the flower on this parole and it was really beautiful. So we bought this plant and now we're about halfway through the season. So the plant was bought quite large and there's lots of top growth compared to just this little base. When we're putting this into the ground, we'd probably want to trim off some of that top growth. So instead of trimming it, what I'm going to do is air layer it. The way we go about this is I start off with these little peat pellets, which will be my air layering medium. And I'm just going to take some boiling water and I'm going to sterilize these to begin with. And then I'll just let that sit for maybe half an hour, let them expand, let it cool down. You want to make sure it's cool again before you start the air layering process. The equipment I'm going to need for this is some sort of knife to just ring bark the branches, some aluminium foil, just some freezer bags, some rooting hormone, zip ties, and something to sterilize the cutting tool between this plant and the next plant. So what I've done so far is I've ring barked part of the stem to about the length of the peat pellet. I've then put rooting hormone over the top. Next I will slice the peat pellet and wrap it around the outside. After that I have zip tied the peat pellet to the stem. Next I'm going to wrap some freezer bags around the outside, or half of a freezer bag around the outside to hold in the moisture, and then I'm going to aluminium over the top of that. So from this one bought plant you can see that I've got 4 cuttings via this air layering technique. Here is a different plant that I'm doing some air layering on, and on this plant there are 5 locations that I could choose to take a cutting from. Now I don't want to do all 5 in one go because it might cause too much stress on the plant. So what I'm doing is I'm air layering 2 in between, which will make the remaining 3 easier to get to the following time. Here's one that was left on for 4 weeks and you can start to see the callousing ball popping up around the outside of one of the nodes, but you can see there aren't any roots yet. Here's another one at the 4-week mark and you can see it's got the callousing and roots have just started to form. I then just pot it up and I remove all the leaves except for just a couple half leaves. Here are some cuttings that I prepared earlier via this air layering technique. So this is about the 7-week mark for these since the air layering was done. So there's about 30 here. Now I air layered it for 3 weeks until they started to callus, but before roots had started to form, I then chopped those off and put them into a pot. You can also see that of these 30 plants that I tested this air layering technique on, there is only one that is showing signs of it's not going to make it. So yes, this technique takes a little bit more time and effort, but when cuttings themselves are a numbers game, maybe it's worth it. Awesome, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons for more tips and tricks on creating your own root roses.